go where you are, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, I'm quite glad we're calling creative citizens now, because I was terrified when I said it was how to win the internet. There's a definite likability hurdle in that title for a panel. I mean, I felt like Samantha Britt. Like our later panel, how to be the baddest mother in the room. It's like it's a dangerous thing. Especially seeing as I kind of the challenge I have is that I don't really feel like a winner. I think in many ways my life's work has been a failure. In that I've tried to be in a band, and everything that I kind of would look at as what counted as being in a band when I was a child, I haven't really done. You won't find me in the NME unless you've got one back issue from 2006, and you won't see me on NTV very often, and things like that, or whatever, and things like that. I mean, I think 6 Music may send you a badge, but really, in terms of what counts in most people's minds still, I think, as success in music, I haven't really done very much. But in being a failure, I think what's really fascinating about the way things have changed in the last few years is that I'm a failure in a way that most people have never really been able to be a failure before. At your OrgCon, so you'll know this, but in case anyone's brought their ground there, there's a thing that Google do called analytics, where you can put a bit of code in the back end of your web page and you can watch data as people come in, and you can see what browsers people are using, stuff like that. And earlier this year, we did a crowdfunding thing for the 4th album we've just released, and we put it up on one day. And on that first day, I was sat watching the Google Analytics data come in, and these are just people who, not on that first day, there was no kind of virality, no one had shared it, so it was only people who were like the first tier that we were able to reach with Facebook, Twitter, and things like that. And what was fascinating about this, I pressed export to see the top list of the top cities that sent traffic to the webpage. And it sort of started off with London and New York and the obvious places, but then it just sort of kept going to Kuala Lumpur and Guadalajara and Cumbernauld and all these places, just down and down until it reached the end, the cut-off point where you couldn't see any more cities, which was 500. And literally, I think after the first 100 cities, there was one person per city in pretty much every city in the world, which means that I'm unsuccessful, but on a global scale. I'm not just a failure, I'm a massive failure. To me that's fascinating, because it's completely backwards. And apart from being the proof that touring is a bit of a nightmare, because people will email you saying, hey, come to Brasilia, and you just, no. That would be a terrible thing, you're the only person who likes this in Brasilia. But there is more than that, in that everything that we used to know about music, the idea that you would build a local following, and then you go to London, and then if you were lucky, maybe you go to Birmingham, and then if you were really lucky, you go to Northampton. And then beyond that, maybe someday someone in Germany might hear something you did. It's the complete reverse of that now. You go initially out to the whole world, and then you kind of have to condense that down somewhere to now. And that's crazy. It's everything that everyone will ever tell you about being a band is the exact opposite of that. It's backwards and days and night and through the looking glass, and nothing makes sense. But what's brilliant about that, I think, is that in that situation, you really are free to do anything. The whole idea that people will pay £100 a year to buy 10 albums and music is priced at about £10 per hour, that's gone. The idea that it's local has gone. Now, that £100 that people spend a year, the market's pretty much the same. Whatever people tell you about piracy, the market that exists is pretty much the same. The supply has exploded. So many people are putting music into the world and making it available in so many different ways that the price has kind of collapsed. But that means that you're not tied to this idea of £10 CDs, and you're not tied to the idea that the only people who can succeed in the market are people who can exploit the economies of scale that are inherent in being a massive company. So what I brought just a few things that we look like, just I thought interesting. We cut this, the vinyl, that's annoying. Sorry. That's me, we made that. That's Julia, she's there. And then the CDs and DVDs and books we made and magazines. And all these things we kind of put up for sale as a pre-order object. And what was fascinating about all of these things is that apart from the vinyl, which is still really irritating, which quite loads of, we would make a profit if we'd sold one copy of every one, because everything was done using new technologies. Everything was done using print on demand, using CD at once, using things that we could design on our own computer. I mixed everything at home. We paid for some studio time, but basically, every single thing here was, all these books and DVDs. If we'd only sold one copy, it would still have been a profitable enterprise. And that's also never happened before. In the past, you'd have to produce 10,000 books in order to sell one book. And that's the crazy thing in the whole economics of it, where you had fixed costs, which were something you could economize on, and you had marginal costs, which were the cost basically of the second item you produced, and that was what set the price. All of that has collapsed. So I don't know how to win at the internet, but I think everyone can fail at the internet in a much more successful way than they can, because you don't need to earn £100,000, give 90,000 of it to different members of staff to do all this stuff for you, and economise in scale. You can make £10,000 by selling to 100 or so people all over the world who are willing to pay for a bunch of mental stuff that you just made in your house. And it is funny, but the fact that I was able to do that, and the fact that we can almost pay for ourselves doing that despite being colossal global failures, is something that I think is new and interesting, and that we can be proud of, and that pretty much anyone else would do. So that's all I wanted to say about that. And
everything he said times 2. All right, this is the crazy time. Used to be when you were a writer, you knew what was going to happen in your life. Once you sold the book and once the book burned out, then you sat home and worked, and twice a year the nice royalty check comes, or doesn't, and you wait for the book to burn out a little bit longer. And that's what life pretty much looked like from the time I got into this business until about 5 years ago. And then things started to get a little bit strange around the edges, and you can hear sort of, Rod Serling standing behind you going, consider, if you will, a world where everything goes to hell. And, all of a sudden, advances are going down. All of a sudden, publishers who knew who you were have stopped knowing who you were because you are not cost-effective enough for them to pay attention to anymore. Now, that hasn't been so much my problem, but it's happened to a lot of other writers I know. Once upon a time, the mid-list was a thriving place for writers who weren't insanely successful, but also weren't the dregs. And all of a sudden, the mid-list is getting shaken out, squeezed out, and what you have increasingly are really, really effective, powerful writers like Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, and so forth. And everybody else who's now trying to claw their way up into that category by about 5 or 10 different ways. 50 Shades of Grey. We have to mention that at this point. Something that causes nearly every other writer to quietly go off in a corner and gnash their teeth at least once. At least once. Have you read the thing? God. Oh, God. And there's an old Peanuts cartoon from many years ago where Snoopy is going to be a novelist, and he submits a manuscript, and he gets back his first rejection letter, and he just fades out. He zones out completely, and he lies there on top of the doghouse for a long time until I think it's Linus comes along and says to him, what they rejected is just as good or much better than a lot of the stuff that's getting published now. And Snoopy snaps up, wait, what happened? What day is it? And we all wind up having to fight with that day by day, and we fight it in different ways. What I've done as the electronic end of things has really taken off as ebooks have become much more accessible and easy to find for people, is get out there and dance that dance as hard as I can and expect to fall down a lot, but when you fall down, you pick yourself up and get going again. Try everything once. And my husband, you hear him in the next room going, good, I like the idea of that motto. He's a nice man. It also helps to marry a writer, because then you don't have to waste time with the long explanations that normal human beings need, because it can be sometimes problematic when you're writing at home. And hard work for a writer will sometimes look like this. And really hard work will look like that, you get the anime drool. And normal people will interrupt you and ask you to go to the shops because you're not doing anything right then. But in any case, trying everything. Self-publishing, absolutely. Self-publishing, opening your own ebook store. This is something the great names have, Rowling now has her own marketing channel out of Pottermore. You try things like giving it away for free, briefly. You do insane discounts every now and then just to keep your fandom on your toes. You get very, very engaged in social media. A lot of my people are, the Young Wizards fandom in particular, are holed up on Tumblr, which apparently is the only part of the internet that Prism is not interested in. So we have some small accomplishment there. But being there to answer questions, to joke around with them, to do my own fanish things, because it shocks them to find out that a writer and a franchise manager can be a fan something else. So I had, I'm a Sherlock fan. I was having breakfast and Speedies this morning. And I just uploaded a sound file of what breakfast and Speedy sounds like for all the Sherlock fans. And getting out there and playing, it just draws people in to see, what else has she got that might be worth looking at? That's all I ask. One person will tell another, or somebody will stumble across me. That's fine. It's the way to go. One thing quickly before I lose the thread. This morning, one of the fans on Tumblr had just bought a package of the original Young Wizard books. I've been updating them slowly. The 1990s Computing, the third novel in particular, was really looking kind of threadbare. So I've been updating them all into the new millennium. And one of my fans said, I just bought the whole package of books, and I've got 9 free downloads that I haven't used, so if you'll IM me, I will give you one for free. Now, half of my brain is going, oh God, no, lost sales. There's 9 people who won't give me money, and I will not feed my husband or my cat. However, the other part, which is learning to let go, and this is a new thing, saying it's all right. Because if one of those people has your stuff as a gift and likes it, they'll come back and pay for something else another time. So calm your tits. It's going to be all right. That's what it's like now. Every morning you'd have to just wake up and say, calm down. It's going to be okay. Just don't stop dancing. That's all you can do.
Hello. Yeah, where to start? I think, for those who don't know, most of my music life is playing bass on my own, which, given that it sounds more like a dare than a job, set me up with a very